Hey everyone, welcome again to The Way It Is. And you know who I am, Luke Anafato with Remax Service First Realty. And I have a guest with me today so that he doesn't feel left out. My other licensed assistant, Joel Malcolm, is with me today.
Hello, everybody.
Joel is a, relatively newly minted realtor. When did you actually get your license, Joel?
August 2nd, I believe. The day I started at the brokerage, it came in.
There we go. Yeah. August, September, October, November. 4 months in. And he's enjoying it?
Enjoying it. Yeah. Well, a drastic difference compared to my last job, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Good. So today we're kind of throwing one together. I hate to say that, but because we had a really good guest that did a last minute cancellation on us, unfortunately. So we're going to try to get that rescheduled. But, I thought I'd start with the fact that we're now November 3rd when we're recording this to go out tomorrow morning, November 4th. And so, we're in the last 2 months of the year. And what does that mean for real estate and those that are thinking about real estate, especially those thinking about listing their properties? Because I know historically, because I'm an old fart and I've done this for way too long, that historically a lot of people don't want to list their homes late in the year simply because a lot of them, it's not fun moving in winter months if you had a closing, which we can talk about, and that sort of thing, right? I mean, let's face it. Historically, spring is the prime time when people tend to migrate, both from a residential real estate standpoint, also from a residential tenancy standpoint. People just move in that time of year because of how their lives work, right? With children in school and things of that nature. But there was an article. What triggered this is an article that Ben had pulled up that aired on CTV that talked about realtors. Royal LePage had actually done a survey amongst their agents, and 956 respondents out of, I think they've got literally tens of thousands of agents across the country. Yeah. So not a big sampling, but anyway, certainly 950 is not insignificant, I guess. And that majority of them, actually almost 80%, 79%, said they were going to recommend to their clients to sell this winter versus waiting till the spring. I'm not sure how much that has to do with someone wanting to line their own pockets.
100%.
But given that we just trashed the CBC steering documentary, but there are agents out there that sadly want commission checks. But curiously enough, though, here's the interesting point, though, that this statistic is 15% higher than it was. There was one done pre-pandemic, and only the respondents, don't know how it just says there was 64% of the respondents at that time recommended listing in the winter. And again, that speaks to what I started with, in the sense that historically this time of year, people don't normally think to list their homes. Now, that being said, I've had very strong fall markets and strong sales in the fall for the simple. And I always recommend it to clients that if you, and again, it boils down to what your need is, but it boils down to the fact that if you were to list your house today, you actually stand just as good a chance of getting as good a price, if not better, in today's market conditions at this time of year. And that for a couple of reasons. One is inventory is even more scarce than it already has been.
Yeah, well, I just pulled up those stats the other day, right?
Yeah,
compared to 2016, there was almost like 1,500 active listings in 2016 this month, compared to, I think it was like less than 150 now this month.
And that's in Keystone area, right? Which is not a lot of properties for sale. And that runs the entire our region, right? The Keystone Real Estate Board, which is pretty big swath of territory. So there you go. So the buyers that are still active and in the marketplace, which we know they are because we see sales happening still every day. Now you've got a captive audience, right? So those and the buyers that are out there have picked over everything. So that if there's anything left to pick over, they've seen it, done it, lost out on it because they were in a multiple offer situation. So now I would certainly say, and this isn't a self-fulfilling or a my own agenda here, but definitely there's a rationale to saying if you wanted to capitalize on variables in the marketplace to get a strong sale price, listing your home now would be certainly. And as far as moving, because I touched on that, but in today's market, sellers essentially can pretty much dictate their terms as well as their pricing, right? So if someone said to you, I want you to move in 30 days, you don't have to say it. You don't have to accept that. You can go to the next buyer, or you can say, if I'll sell you my house, but I want to move in 90 days, or I want to move in 120 days, or I've even seen closes as long as 6 months sometimes. So you have some control over that date. The other part being, if someone's going to slap a really big number and give you a really big check, begs the question, is it worth the inconvenience to get the money to the inconvenience of having to scramble and move in the winter and find interim accommodation or what have you and stuff.
Now you're speaking mostly to residential.
Correct.
It sounds like.
Yeah.
But obviously we're seeing the same thing with investment properties as well. Like just today, there was a handful of investment properties that came on the market with cap rates that are way below what we would usually see in Kingston. And I guarantee you it's those agents saying, you know what, we may as well give it a shot now. The market's hot. Everything's been kind of picked over, and we have an opportunity here to potentially get better value than we could in a balanced market.
And that's been a model that's been consistent throughout my career, Joel, is that, having been here now and worked with me and Sam, that we do a lot of investment properties. We have the property management on the other side of that. And that's constant for us throughout the year. But I remember certainly historically that the fall and winter months is when a lot more of investment property sales happen. And that's simply, I think, hard to say, but I think, again, people turn their attention to these other things, right? I mean, their lives are busy if they sold their home, but now they've got surplus equity in their property. They're pulling it out. We had our office meeting the other morning, and we always have a mortgage representative come and sit with us, and he was from CIBC. And he mentioned how there's a lot of people still doing refinances because, of course, it's found money now in their properties because they've appreciated so much in value over the last 18 months to 24 months. So now what are they going to do with that money? Not everybody's going to go on a trip. Not everybody's going to, right, buy an RV and start driving around the country. So people want to say, how am I going to put this money to work for me, right? So investment properties have always, real estate's always been a rock, no pun intended, or literally a very solid, stable, rock solid, stable investment. Historically, I mean, I wouldn't have done what I do if I didn't believe in that. So I've owned investment properties myself, still do. So there's value in owning real estate, and it speaks to the stability of the product, right? And we've touched on this in previous podcasts because the stock market is still always an unpredictable animal, and that's a different type of mindset as an investor, right? You've got to be to play the stock market. I dare say, I mean, and I'm not talking about throwing your money with a planner into a mutual fund that just sits there or whatever. I'm talking those that want to take more risk and you've got to be prepared to walk away from some money depending on how the market turns or doesn't turn. Where real estate, worst case scenario, houses didn't appreciate by 20% this year, or they only appreciate by 10% this year. Well, you're still getting appreciation.
Yeah, they're always going up. It's a tale as old as time. Land is everything, right? Land is power. Land is wealth. I mean, obviously that was back in the day, but there's only so much land. Right,
that's right.
To
well,
go around.
Going back, and actually. Bit of a segue, because there's one other thing we're going to segue into or talk about is this whole blind bidding thing because there was a movement afoot during the election, as you know, and all the parties wanted to end blind bidding and whatnot. But we'll touch on that in a second. So, but I guess just to wrap this portion up, I would say to those out there that if you are considering selling your home, and there's a need to sell it, there's certainly nothing wrong with listing and selling it now. And in fact, if your mandate was that you wanted to get it sold before the end of the year, that could be accomplished as well, right? I mean, we listed a property last week on Friday. We're holding offers till this Friday. Different animal in terms of it's a student rental property, but someone could want to close on that before the end of the year. I know most closings, I think the average in Kingston was under 30 days now for closings. So we'll leave that there. And certainly if anyone has any questions or want to send us an email and get some more information or have a conversation, we're always open to that and would welcome the opportunity for sure. So let's do an abrupt stop and go in another direction now with this blind bidding controversy, I guess. I subscribe, and I got the guys to subscribe. There's an online, used to become in print version, and now it's only online, but it's a real estate magazine, and it literally is called REM, the acronym for Real Estate Magazine. And
Easy
so
enough.
us as realtors subscribe to it, and it has some timely articles. It comes out every week, and sometimes there's articles not worth paying attention to, and other times there are. But the Canadian Real Estate Association actually engaged with this Smart Prosperity Institute, and they did an academic research into bidder psychology and talked about the different methods used to manage multiple offers. And they took different countries, actually, the United States, Sweden, Singapore, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand. And I guess the fallout of it was that there's an indication, and again, I say an indication because I don't know enough about the study and the questions that were asked, but there's an indication that transparent bidding actually in those other areas has led to increased housing prices, more so than blind bidding. So the world we live in now is a blind bid, as those of you and clients know that have experienced it with us this year. And there was one situation that happened earlier this year. An agent tried that online transparent bidding.
I did hear about that one.
And I didn't have a client that took part in it. You could watch it. I think it happened live stream. And in the end, I dare say that, to be candid with you, the property still sold for over the asking price, but I don't know if it sold. Conceivably, I think it could have sold more with blind bidding. And so when I say that, people are going to say, see, I told you so. And it's not so much about that. I mean, at the end of the day, if you were the seller and conceivably there was still another 20 grand left on the table, you'd be kind of kicking yourself, wouldn't you? If you're the buyer, yeah, okay. Because I mean, let's understand this. There's two sides of this equation. The person benefiting, the homeowner selling, and then the buyer. But the buyer's benefiting as well because they're buying their home. They're securing the property. And that's what people lose sight of, when in this multiple offer blind bidding process. Because I've talked about this before, and Joel, when I'm training Joel, and we're on appointments together, and he's involved in these situations. The conversation with the client. Well, you tell me, what's your conversation with the client? I'm going to put you on the spot.
As far as blind bidding goes?
Yeah.
Well, and I think I'm almost reiterating exactly what you and Sam tell me. It's if we get to the point, so as realtors, we're aware of offers as they come in on a property.
Now, just clarify that it's number of offers. We're not aware of the terms of the offers and stuff like that.
And so, I mean, most agents wait until the last hour essentially to submit their offer because they base their offer price or conditions based on how many offers have been submitted. So if we get into, it depends if it's an investment property or just a residential home. But if we get into that situation where there's quite a few offers, then we always just say, put your best foot forward. What's the price you could offer that you could, go to sleep at night knowing you didn't get it? And you're not going to be having night sweats going, I wish I spent $5 more grand, right?
Right.
And so in the end, we don't try to force our buyers into any situations they would regret. Right, we're just there to inform them, and that's how I've been taught in the lessons through OREA and here at this brokerage. We're just there to inform the buyer and to help them make the best decision for their scenario.
Right, and it's not a number that's pulled out of thin air or somebody's butt. I'm going to tell you that it's insofar as we can do market sales analysis for clients, and we do that. But you have to take those with a grain of salt as well. And that's where truly working with the right agent helps in this situation, because it's going to boil down to experience. It's going to boil down to 33 years of knowing what sold for what and when, and is this now worth? Because value now is a very subjective and individualized and interpretive thing, right?
Yep.
It's
Yep.
what's worth 100,000 to me is worth 200,000 to you, could only be worth 50,000 to Ben, right? So it's no different than when why do people buy certain vehicles? Why do people buy fashion designer wear? Why do people buy certain sunglasses, right? Everybody interprets value differently. It's this very subjective, very emotional thing.
Like homes with pools, right? That's a prime scenario, right?
Exactly.
Some people value those crazy.
Like crazy now. And literally throughout my entire career, my comment to clients always was, you know what? A pool would actually jeopardize or hinder a sale potentially because you could ask 10 people and the mindset always was that, you know what, out of 10 people, 5 would say, okay, I'll take it. And 5 would say, no, I don't want one because of the perceived maintenance of the perceived.
I'm one of those people.
But now the pandemic's flipped everything on its ear,
true.
like with everything. And now because everybody was hunkered down and everything, and if you got to stay home and you can't go out anywhere and you can't travel anywhere and you can't, do anything, you might as well have a pool in your backyard so that you can enjoy it, your family can enjoy it, and you got some recreation going on, right? So that's how these things have changed so much. And then getting back to this blind bidding, at the end of the day, no one's saying, hey, bid $1 million more than the asking price unless they want to. But and if it's worth worth it to them, because at the end of the day, I've said this, and we just had this happen last Friday with a client for a very significant property downtown, and it was listed at just over almost $1.6 million, 1.595, and there were 4 offers, and it was an investment property. There were 3 units, one of the nicest ones I'd seen downtown. But this couple that made the offer had an end goal. They were going to keep it as an investment property in the interim because I've sold them other investment properties. But the location was something that in 10 years' time, they were going to move into one of these units. And they were going to be spectacular, and they wanted to live downtown, and they weren't going to be condo people. So it filled a need. He was the successful bidder, and he paid $350,000 over the asking price, right? $355,000 over the asking price. Now, from the outside looking in, people's jaws probably dropped and stuff. But, at the end of the day, they got the property. They were in tears that night signing the offer. Ecstatic. They were so excited to
and obviously, you helped them through the process, right? With financials, it made sense at the price you offered.
That's right.
As an investment.
As an investment in the interim, securing the asset. And the thing is, they're not making any more properties like that downtown, and they're hard to come by. So now that he owns it, what are those 3 other buyers going to do? Well, they got to wait for the next one to come along, right? So that's the point of this. And so with transparent bidding, which again, I've only seen it happen the one time. But Joel, you made a really interesting point when we were talking about this before coming on air here. Is if you can start seeing now what other people are bidding, how is that still going to not stop the guy from playing the trump card at any time? Yeah. Right? Because if I was an agent and I was saying, hey, you really want to lock this down now? Play a big trump card right now and blow everybody out of the water.
It's still the same situation. I don't understand how it really changes it. And then it also brings into that mindset. If you're going back and forth against somebody, going up in $1,000 increments, all of a sudden it turns into this emotional battle of, okay, I want the property, but now I want to win. I want to win against this other guy. All of a sudden you're blowing past, and I assume they probably touch on it somewhere in this study. These prices are getting blown up even further because people are getting more emotional. And whether we like it or not, we have a lot of gambling issues in our society. and
no thanks to OLG.
So, that's probably has something to do with why they're seeing
it's a trigger. That's right. I mean, you see that live auctions when Gordon's used to do live auctions for properties. I was there back in the day when we would literally stand on the front lawn of the property and bid.
Wow.
Yeah, that's going back. So, and people got crazy sometimes, right? So again, whether it's transparent, whether it's blind, at the end of the day, you need to sit down and make a conscious, well thought out decision of what you're going to do and when you're going to do it, right? In terms of, I'm not going to cross this line. And like Joel said, our line is to clients always has been, and I know it because it's always been for me, is that, listen, if you lose it and you go to sleep tonight, you're not going to kick yourself and say, Jesus, man, I should have bid another $5,000. Do not leave anything on the table, right? And if you don't get it, you can wake up the next day and say, hey, you know what? Life goes on. It wasn't for us. let's move on to the next one, right? So that's the conversations we need to have. But let's just touch on quickly the underlying reasons why this is happening, and it speaks to these systemic issues with the marketplace in lack of inventory. I've said this ad nauseum and almost touched on it in virtually almost 80% of my podcasts. There is a scarcity of inventory. It's a trend that's happened over the last decade. Joel just did the stats the other day. From 2016 to 5 years later, we're from 1,500 properties available to 150. I don't even know. I mean, brain can't do that percentage math that fast.
It's like 10 times decrease, right?
Yeah. But it's a significant drop, right?
God.
So let's understand what's happening. And so, during the election, there was some touch points that people touched on. The guest that we were going to have was Tim Hudak, the CEO of the Ontario Real Estate Association. And
but you got a better one instead.
With some got Joel here instead, which is going to drive up the listenership and the subscribership. But it's there's some initiatives out there now that we got to try to find or create, affordable housing for people. Is it repurposing existing commercial office space that no one's going to go back and work in? Is it, expediting or loosening municipal legislation and rules and bylaws and official plan, so that developers can actually turn property faster from A to start to finish?
I'm sure you've already touched on it in one of your previous podcasts, but Kingston's undergoing massive change to their bylaw, and hopefully it comes out soon. I don't know, with COVID delaying everything.
Yeah, I mean, I know that they had a new official plan coming out, and I don't know if that's been revamped now or changed or added to. But I still hear the stories of how challenging it is for people to deal with, and I'm not trying to be disparaging to the city of Kingston by any means, but that's a common theme, not only in the municipality of Kingston, but municipalities throughout the province of Ontario. So, and I dare say probably throughout the country. So there's some inherent issues that are these causal effects to the situation we're in and what's happening in the marketplace. Whether the bids are blind or transparent is, I think, the least of the driving factors for housing prices and where they are. So that being said, just a quick little side note before we wrap up, but rates have gone up incrementally over the last month. A month ago, you could get 5-year money at 1.99, and now it's at 2. What do you say?
I think it's 3.9. Yeah, 2.39.
2.39. Yeah, so up half a basis point.
Yeah,
then, right?
0.4.
0.4.
40 basis points. Yeah.
So there you go. So they're starting to creep up a bit. I think could be a little bit of a reaction to the inflationary issues happening in the world, because we're all seeing it at the grocery store, at the gas pump, heating our houses. So anyway, any last minute thoughts or anything you want to add, Joel?
I think, I guess we can also touch on just supply in general, right? So this blind bidding is trying to do something about the blind bidding is just treating a symptom of the actual illness, which is supply.
Correct.
So, and we touched on it briefly before we came down, and it comes down to land availability. And I don't have a clear answer for it. Because a lot of the land, at least surrounding Kingston, is privately owned, and we also have a lot of stuff designated as green areas, right? And what are you going to do? You're going to twist some farmer's arm to sell their land? Like, is the city going to expropriate?
And let's understand this. Let's say the parcel existed and someone was ready to buy it. The fact remains, to take raw land and to get it into a state where you've now got infrastructure there, meaning water, sewer, roads, street lights, all of that. That's a 5-year process. That's a 5-year process, and literally not hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars for a developer. So there's a big cost to playing that game and doing that process, right?
That's a long-term
That's a long-term commitment. And again, what's the solution to that? I don't think just lessening certain zoning issues will solve that entire problem, right? Or shorten that time frame, but it'll help. But still, there's just not access to that much developable land in the immediate area, right?
people are caught up with this stuff, which I mentioned was just a symptom, when they should really be discussing that supply issue, and they are.
But that's where government should play a role, right? Government sat on their hands for the last 50 years with housing. You know, I mean, where's the government partnership initiatives here to help the private enterprise have land? You know, are there government lands? Are there government buildings that can be repurposed? So what are they going to offer? Are they going to give tax incentives? Are they going to, you know, what partnerships can they take and initiatives can they help with to help create an inventory and not so much a surplus, but at least an inventory of land that can be developed, or ideas or options for these people or developers in the private enterprise to say, hey, that's a great idea. I think I can do that. Right. So anyway, food for thought. We thank you for tuning in and indulging us in our little bit of a random conversation. But I think we touched on some really key points. The other thing I was going to say, because we're at episode 49, and so I've been a year at this, depending on how you look at the calendar. But, please, by all means, if there's a topic you want us to talk about, or you want me to talk about, you want us to research, you want me to get a guest, I am totally open for suggestions. In fact, I'm amazed at myself that I have gone this far and this long with a weekly podcast. So, I can't think of them all. So I'd welcome even anybody with any ideas or for podcasts or guests or topics. That would be awesome. So.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks, Joel. Great insight. And we'll talk to you next time.